Okay, so today we're going to be diving deep into some fascinating listener-provided material and really try to get to the bottom of a very specific topic. As always, right, we want to extract those really key sort of golden nuggets of knowledge from what you've given us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to be acting as that shortcut for everyone to become an expert,
Yeah,
at least for the next however long this deep dive is.
exactly. And you know what we're looking at today? It's something that I'm personally very intrigued by, and I'm sure many of our listeners are too, and that is Monjayaki.
Monjayaki, huh? Now, that's a word I haven't heard in a while.
Well, get ready to hear it a lot more because we've got an excerpt from a podcast. It's called Japan Eats Beyond Sushi. And this episode is all about Monjayaki, Tokyo's lesser-known street food. So that's our source material.
Okay, so we're going deep on Monjayaki. Sounds delicious already.
It does. And I think the mission here really is to understand it on multiple levels. What exactly is this dish? Where did it come from? How do you actually cook and eat it? And even like where in the world can you find it?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, is this something you can just whip up at home, or do you have to book a flight to Tokyo? All good questions.
So let's jump right in. Let's start with the basics. What is Monjaki?
All right, so Monjaki, sometimes just called Monja, is a Tokyo street food.
Street food, okay.
Yeah. And it's often compared to the much more famous okonomiyaki, that savory pancake thing.
Right, I've heard of that. So is it like a type of okonomiyaki then?
Kind of, but not really. The podcast describes them as being like cousins,
Yeah,
related, but definitely distinct.
cousins, I like that. So where does it fit in, like, geographically within Tokyo? Is it everywhere?
It seems like it's very much tied to those older, more traditional parts of Tokyo.
Like old school Tokyo vibes.
Exactly. The podcast specifically mentions the Tsukishima district as like the heartland of Monjayaki.
Interesting. So it's not just some new trendy food, it's got roots.
Yeah, deep roots. And one of the things that makes it stand out is the batter. It's super runny, like much more liquidy than okonomiyaki.
Really? So it's not like a thick pancake batter.
Not at all. It's cooked on a hot griddle, but it spreads out, almost like a thin sauce.
Okay. So I can already see how this is different from okonomiyaki. It's a very different texture.
Right. And the podcast even mentions that, like, it might not look that appealing at first glance. A runny, kind of grayish batter,
Yeah.
not necessarily Instagram worthy.
Yeah, not all food has to be pretty to be tasty, right? So what is it about Monjayaki that makes it so special then?
Well, apparently the taste is what wins people over. It's described as being incredibly savory, like umami-packed. And locals, they're hooked. They find it super addictive and satisfying. And I wonder if it's that unusual texture that plays a part too, right?
Like it offers a different sensory experience.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's that contrast between the crispy edges and the soft, creamy center that really makes it unique.
Okay, so maybe not love at first sight, but definitely love at first bite.
Exactly. It's one of those things you have to experience to fully appreciate.
All right, so we've got a basic idea of what it is. Now let's go back in time a bit. Where did Monjayaki come from?
So according to the podcast, its roots go way back, like to the late Edo period or the early Meiji era. So we're talking mid to late 1800s.
Wow, that's a long history.
Yeah. And get this, it started as a simple kid snack.
Really? Not the elaborate dish it is today.
Nope. Back then, it was called Monjayaki.
Mm.
And the name is super interesting. Apparently, kids would use the batter to write letters. Moji means letters on the hot griddle, like they're literally playing with their food.
That's adorable. It's amazing how a simple kid's game evolved into a full-fledged dish.
It is. And the ingredients evolved too. It started with just flour and water, very basic. Then people began adding stuff to make it more interesting. Shredded cabbage, seafood, different meats, even noodles. It slowly transformed over time.
I guess that's how a lot of classic dishes come about, right? Starting simple and then evolving with new ideas and ingredients.
Absolutely. And by the mid-20th century, it seems like Monjayaki had become a real staple in Tokyo, like a classic comfort food, ingrained in the local culture.
A true Tokyo original. Okay, so we know what it is, we know where it came from. Now, the big question. How do you make it?
Right, let's get into the nitty-gritty of actually cooking Monjayaki. It sounds like it's a pretty hands-on experience.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it's not just cooking, it's part of the dining experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So first things first, you've got your runny batter, and you mix in finely chopped cabbage and all sorts of other ingredients. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing.
What kind of ingredients are we talking about?
Well, the podcast mentions things like dried shrimp, squid, cheese, even mentaiko. that spicy cod roe.
Mentaiko, that's interesting. It's a pretty strong flavor.
Yeah, it adds a real kick.
Yeah.
And I bet there are all sorts of regional variations too, using
Mm.
local seafood or whatever's in the season.
Okay, so you've got your batter all prepped, your toppings ready to go. What happens next?
So you heat up your griddle, right? Get it nice and hot. Then you drizzle a bit of oil on there. Then, here's the interesting part. You take all the solid ingredients, your cabbage, shrimp, whatever, and you make a ring with them on the griddle, like a donut shape.
A donut of cabbage and shrimp, huh? Interesting strategy. Why a ring, though?
That ring acts like a barrier. Then you pour the liquid batter into the center of the ring.
Ah, so it doesn't just run all over the place?
Exactly. It keeps it contained while it starts to cook.
Makes sense. So it simmers away in the middle of this little ingredient dam.
Exactly. And as it cooks, it slowly thickens up. But here's where the real fun begins. The eating part.
Okay, tell me about those special spatulas, the hagashi. They're kind of iconic, right?
Oh yeah, they're essential for Monjayaki.
Mm.
But you don't use them to flip the whole thing like a pancake. Instead, you use them to scrape up little bits from the griddle as it cooks.
So everyone's kind of cooking and eating at the same time?
Yep. It's like a constant grazing situation. You scrape up the bits that are cooked to your liking, while the rest continues to simmer and develop its flavors.
It sounds so interactive and communal.
It is. And the podcast really emphasizes this contrast in texture that you get. The edges where the batter meets the hot griddle get all crispy and caramelized, but then the center stays soft and creamy.
It's like the best of both worlds, texture-wise. Okay, so now I'm really craving this. If someone wants to experience authentic Monjayaki, where should they go?
Well, the podcast is very clear. Tsukishima is the place to be. They even call it Monja Street.
Monja Street. I love it. It's like a whole street dedicated to this one dish.
It's serious business. Apparently, there are over 70 Monjayaki restaurants crammed into this little area, each one with its own unique twists and recipes.
Wow, talk about options. It's a Monjayaki lover's paradise.
Go.
Did they mention any specific restaurants that stand out?
Yeah, they highlighted one called Tsukishima Monja Mugi. It's apparently a favorite among locals and tourists alike.
Okay, gotta add that to the list. What
Yeah.
makes it so special?
They've got a huge variety of toppings, both classic and more inventive. Plus, it has a really welcoming vibe. And apparently the staff is super helpful, especially for first-timers.
That's good to know. It can be a little intimidating trying something completely new. So, Tsukishima is the Monjayaki mecca. But what about the rest of the world? Can you find it outside of Tokyo?
It sounds like it's still pretty niche, at least compared to okonomiyaki, which you can find almost everywhere these days.
It's surprising, given how much people love Japanese food in general. I wonder why it hasn't caught on as much.
I know, right? But the podcast does mention that it's slowly starting to appear on menus outside Japan, especially as Japanese street food gains popularity. So maybe it's just a matter of time.
Hopefully it does take off. It sounds too good to be kept a secret. What about making it at home? Is that a realistic option?
It seems like it is. The podcast says the ingredients are pretty easy to find, and all you really need is a large griddle or even a big frying pan. So if you're adventurous in the kitchen, you can definitely give it a try.
That's great to know. So even if you can't hop on a plane to Tokyo, you can still get a taste of Monjayaki.
Exactly. It's a little bit of Tokyo you can bring to your own kitchen.
Well, there you have it. That was our deep dive into Monjayaki, Tokyo's wonderfully unique street food.
I feel like I've learned a lot. It's amazing how much history and culture is packed into a single dish.
Totally. We learned about its humble beginnings as a children's snack, how it evolved over time, the whole interactive cooking and eating experience, and even where to find the best of the best in Tokyo.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just food. It's a whole experience. And it makes you think, doesn't it? There are probably so many other hidden culinary gems out there just waiting to be discovered.
It's true. I mean, every culture has its own unique food traditions, and it's so exciting to explore beyond the familiar.
Absolutely. So next time you're feeling adventurous, whether you're traveling or just cooking at home, why not take a chance on something completely new? You never know what delicious discoveries await.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Monjayaki. Until next time, keep exploring and happy eating.
Bon appétit.